have some former board members here. Ed House. Kevin? Anyone else? Don? Manish and Jessica are not here, but I did want to take a moment to thank Manish and Martha, who are finishing out their 3-year term and are not running for election again. So thank you. Both Martha and Manish worked tirelessly on the Ends Committee the last 3 years. Martha as committee chair, and put an enormous amount of work into making sure everyone's voices were heard in that process. Stakeholders, vendors, employees, shoppers, trying to get the most democratic input they could on that process. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later, our ends and our values. But thank you to Martha and Manish, who isn't here. I also want to take a moment to thank Amanda, our new general manager. She's not quite new. She's been in the position almost a year, but it's her first annual meeting as general manager. She was with the co-op 10 years before that, starting as sustainability coordinator and then director of member services. The benchmark of Amanda's leadership style, which to me is her ability to build teams and culture, is that a year ago we had over 70 open positions at the co-op, and today we have under 30. Amanda never works alone, always builds a team. And she's doing great. So thank you. My bullet points. I think I'll leave it there because we have other people speaking, but I want to turn it over to CJ really quickly to talk about elections and bylaws, and I'll come back in a second.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. It's so good to see everyone, to have everyone in person today. Stick around because we have an exciting candidates forum. We have some good candidates here today with us, and we're all excited. We get excited about this time of the year, so stick around. So I'm going to give just a few points about just our bylaws. So our current bylaws limit the board to 2 employees. There is already 1 employee and 2 employees that are candidates. Only 1 employee can be elected at this moment. So next year, the board may look at the bylaws to expand the number of employees that can be on the board, among other things. Because it's just some talk about, we want to foster that community, and we do love the input from the employees because it enriches and adds value to just the discussion. This is inspired by one of our values that I just talked about, which is employees' well-being. So we want to get more from our employees. And I just want to, even if we do have employees here today, I know, is Kevin here? Yeah. There he is. I just want to give a round of applause for all of our employees and just the hard work that they do. So I'll conclude. That was very short and brief. But there will be an opportunity to ask questions. So if you have any questions, make sure you think of some good ones, because I know that our candidates will be well prepared to answer. So that concludes. Thank you.
So Orin has been the chair of our governance committee, and Jessica, who isn't here, has chaired our member linkage committee, our owner linkage committee. Marta, as we know, chaired our ends committee, which we sunset after that work was completed. And Lindsay, who is restoring our values, is also an employee, has been chairing our DEI committee. without getting into the weeds of policy governance and how the board works, I don't know how to say it without getting into the weeds. We have ends. We're thinking about having values, and we want to do a good job having values. I'm going to let Lindsay explain, so, as chair of the DEI committee.
Thank you. So one of the new things that we're doing this year, out of the work that the ends committee did, was in trying to rewrite the ends, the conversation about value statements started to come up. Ends really speak to kind of internal. They're guideposts for the GM. They don't necessarily always translate publicly. And as we're looking at how do we become a more welcoming co-op and expand just our footprint and you know, try to define what we mean to this community, value statements have started to have risen up to the top. These are different than mission. The mission statement is why you exist. Vision statement is that like North Star, that pie in the sky. Value statements are your moral compass. The nice thing about them is that they speak both internally and externally. They give the opportunity, so every internal action we take, we can look and say, does this fit with our values? But these are also things we can put up on the wall that will inspire customers, that will inspire employees, that will inspire new people to the community to say, why should we become members of the co-op? So this group here, you guys are the, you know, we have a pyramid that, you know, highly active and involved with the co-op, but we have a lot of other people. And when you're new to the community and you're looking for a grocery store or you're just looking for something to be a part of, why pick the co-op? And value statements speak a lot to that. So today, a little bit later in the agenda, you all are going to help us. Creating value statements is not a simple process, it's a long process. Out of the work from the ends committee and from the member survey, we did identify 4 main areas. So these are very big general topics. To write a good value statement, it can't be just saying, we value the environment. That's empty. It doesn't mean anything. How? Why? Those are the things we need to, what do we mean by that? So these are the main topics where over on the wall, they'll probably continue to fall down throughout this meeting. I'll continue to tape them back up. But the main topic areas that we've identified that came up over and over from comments from the member survey from our community was community, environment, employees, and local. But now we have to go, what do we mean by that? What, like, I did have notes. So what's important to our company? Why do we prioritize these things? There's some really good examples of value statements out there. We didn't bring any today. This is going to be a long process. But what I'm asking you all to do, and the reason we're introducing it now, is to give your brain a little time to percolate as you're listening to the other presentations. If you're like me, my brain's doing about 4 different things at once, always. There's Post-it notes. Start to write down some ideas. If you're a customer, if you're a member, why do you think we value local? What does that mean to you? 1 words are okay. 3 or 5 words are a little bit better. Because if you just write yes, that doesn't really help us decipher, we know. But help us to try and find the meaning in these values. That's our next step here. So later on, we're gonna have time. You're gonna have probably 20 minutes or so to walk up, put Post-it notes, but we've put the Post-it notes out on the table with markers. So as you're listening, if things start to rise up for you, write them down. You don't have to wait, okay? And then I'll have some prompting questions later.
I got the fancy mic. This is really exciting to be in person again for the first time in my career on the board. So I guess everyone should have a copy of the minutes from last year's meeting, the 2022 meeting, in the board packet that was sent out. And I'm here to facilitate the passing of those minutes. So I'll entertain a motion to accept last year's minutes.
So moved.
Second.
And then I will take a vote. First, is there any discussion? Super. A vote. All in favor? Just a show of hands. All right. Any opposed? Abstentions? Is that an abstention? Okay. One abstention. Super. It looks like it passes. Thank you very much. And I'll pass this.
Good morning. I echo what everybody else has said. It's really nice to be back in person. I have stood up in front of this room before at annual meetings many times in different leadership roles at the co-op, but this is my first time standing up here as general manager. I am super excited to be able to talk a little bit about some of the work that we have done over the last year and some of the things that are coming up for the year ahead. To start off though, I want to recognize all of our co-op employees. I don't know how many of you know, but 2022 was an incredibly challenging year for the business community, especially in grocery retail. We had inflation skyrocketing, we were transitioning out of a pandemic, and then we had a staffing crisis hit. Some of our locations, some of our smaller locations dropped to below 50% staffing levels. Some of our large stores dropped near 50% staffing levels. And through all of that, we were getting comments from customers that they were surprised to hear that we were understaffed. And that is a huge testament to the amount of work that our employees had to put in to keep those operations and those business units operating as if we were fully staffed. Employees were responding daily to these changes. They were doing things like shifting their department hours. We were bringing in new product lines to relieve full service departments. We were launching new technology solutions to ease the pressure on teams like the front end. We were working shifts in other departments. People were going to totally different locations to support other stores. And the list goes on and on and on of different and creative ways that our employees found to support one another and to continue to keep our business open and provide support for our community. And it was absolutely a remarkable feat. Through all of that, we managed to maintain a financially stable business. We kept our doors open for our community, and there were a lot of businesses that were closing doors for days, some of them unfortunately closing down permanently. We had continued to provide food access to our community. We continued to support charitable initiatives in the community, and we continued to provide a retail location for our vendors and local farmers in really financially challenging times. So without the incredible work of our team of employees, without the deep care and commitment that they have for this community, none of this would have happened. So I just wanted to take a moment for everybody to really understand and reflect on what that took for the team to really keep these businesses operating. And next time that you're in one of our locations, please take a moment to thank and appreciate the employees who have given so much care and time to this business and adapted in really creative ways. So the last couple of years have been very challenging. 2022 was definitely challenging. We also had a pandemic before that. And co-ops weather really challenging times remarkably well. In fact, if you look at our history, we were born from one of the most challenging times this country has ever seen, the Depression era. And I think that that is a really good testament to the fact that co-ops are a really different business model. We exist to support our community. We don't exist to generate exorbitant financial wealth at the cost of people and the environment. And I think you see that support throughout our entire community, not just our employees. When I first started working at the co-op, my boss at the time, Terry Appleby, told me something that stuck with me for my entire career. He said, "We are in the relationship business." And I think over the last couple of years, that has been very true, and we've really seen that. Another area of our business that was really affected last year was our supply chain. Our vendors were dealing with the same staffing crisis that we were dealing with. And at a time where other stores were struggling to get products on their shelves, our vendors were working with us behind the scenes. They were prioritizing our business. They were supporting us. So that cooperation and those relationships have really been what has kept us strong throughout the last few years. And last but not least, you all, the members, and the relationship you have to this business It's also been a really challenging time to be a consumer in the last year. You've had to make really difficult choices about where to spend your money and what stores to support and what things you want to invest in. And we have seen people continue to choose the co-op and continue to show that you support our mission, you support what we stand for, and you want to contribute and to be a part of a different type of business. So a huge thank you to all of you as well. Through your support, you've allowed us to provide better jobs for people in our community, support local farms, and to give back to our community. So a huge appreciation to all of you for a really tough year as well. Thank you. Enough about keeping our business open was certainly a Herculean effort last year. We had some other things going on behind the scenes that I just want to highlight. A couple things that we stepped into coming out of the pandemic. It forced us into isolation in our stores in a way that we've never seen before. So coming out of it, we've been really focusing on building bridges between our locations. As I said, we're really in that relationship business. Making sure those relationships are strong for our employees, with our members, with our vendors is really key to our success for the future. So that's been a really big initiative over 2022. We also raised all wages for employees at the co-op. We issued one of the largest bonuses that we have done in recent memory. We improved our benefits and made them more accessible for more employees and their families. We engaged with a fantastic DEI consulting firm, for those who don't know, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, to really start to understand how we can improve our culture and get better and make sure more people feel like they have a seat at the table and they're part of decision making. We initiated our first steps at the co-op to get to a net zero emissions business by 2030, and a huge thank you to our board for putting that policy into place and putting that push on the co-op. We signed on to the Upper Valley group of Upper Valley businesses, the Upper Valley Loan Fund, which is the co-op donated $100,000 or loaned $100,000 to help create affordable housing in the Upper Valley. We established a new executive leadership team. So if you look around this room, you'll see some of our executive leaders. 3 out of 5 of those are new folks to the table. We have added 500 new local items in 2022. We have launched self-checkouts now in 2 locations. Hopefully you've had a chance to test them out. We have launched a new rewards program. And as Nick had said, I'm happy to report that based on the efforts of our new HR director and some creative ideas from employees, the open positions that we had, there were over 70 open positions, are down to 30. Last on 2022, I just want to take a quick minute to recognize some of the awards and additional recognitions that we received in 2022. Some of them, one of them is really for everyone and every person who's ever been a part of this business and created it. New Hampshire Businesses for Social Responsibility recognized us with the Cornerstone Award, which is the highest award that they can honor a company with. And it really is encompassing a reflection and an honor about all of the work that we have done within the community. A few individuals that I wanted to call out, especially because they're here. Emily Rogers, who's a woman who checked you in on your way in, was honored with the Cooperative Innovation and Achievement Award from CCMA, given out. That was to recognize all of the work and the innovative solutions she's put into place through programs such as like Pennies for Change. Just added, Doran Hall was honored recently by the American Legion for a veterans program that he had set up to generate donations with his employees for a veterans organization. Thank you, Doran. And last but not least, NOFA New Hampshire awarded Alan Reitz with the Policy and Advocacy Leader of the Year Award for his advocacy work at the co-op. So now to just look ahead, and I promise, I know I'm almost done. I get a little excited talking about co-ops, can't tell, especially this one. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the future and some of the things you can expect from your business in 2023. So looking ahead, our big theme for next year is to really stabilize and optimize our business. As I had mentioned earlier, it's been a really tumultuous couple of years and things changed quite a bit. So we're really trying to adjust to those changes to kind of get back to basics, to create policies and practices that are standardized throughout all our locations. In addition, we've got some big initiatives to that are going to either continue or start up this year. We will be continuing our work to build bridges between all locations and all stakeholders within the organization. We will be continuing our work with our fantastic DEI consulting firm. We will be looking to expand a couple of different product lines. Our focus this year is really around affordable products and local products. So you'll see some expansion of things like our Co-op Basics program, which is our everyday low price items, our BOGO programs, buy one, get one. You'll see more of those coming out. And our Co-op Rewards program will have additional deals coming throughout the year. We're really trying to create the most affordable pricing that we can for our community. Our new Director of Marketing, just sneaking around the back there, is excited to launch a re-education of the community to really start to remind people what it is to be a co-op and embrace those values and understand membership of the co-op more. We'll be reimagining and reevaluating our prepared foods in the entire ecosystem within the co-op, so look for new offerings at our co-op soon. We'll be launching some new social goals. We'll have a zero waste goal. We'll have some product ethics guidelines. We'll be improving employee benefits and compensation. That one will be on this list probably as long as I stand up here as general manager. We will be also looking to expand some of our charitable giving programs, in particular our Car Connects program, which operates out of our service centers and provides low or no cost repairs to folks in need in our community. So those are a couple of things you can expect from us next year. And to wrap up, I just want to take a moment and remind everybody that the Hanover Co-op is an incredible gem that we have in this community. There is nothing quite like this business anywhere out there. And I know that we all really want this co-op to be better, and everybody has ideas about how we can evolve and down to values. But I think it's really important, and I've been saying this a lot lately, it's okay to both want to do a lot of improvement and also to recognize how far we've come and all that we have accomplished. So I hope that everybody can take a moment and be really proud of the work that you have contributed to and what we have built over the last 8, almost 9 decades. And also to be pushing and to keep wanting us to do better, because that is how we start to innovate and we start to change. So thank you to everybody in this room for caring about our co-op, for contributing to our co-op, and for always pushing us to see possibility where other businesses are seeing impossibility. With that, yes, thank you. My cue to wrap it up. You've been talking about co-ops for too long. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our treasurer, Peggy O'Neill, who has helped us navigate these tumultuous financial times, and our brand new director of finance, who I am super excited to have on our executive leadership team, Jamie Shepton. Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. I need to adjust this because I'm shorter than most people. Hi, everyone. Peggy O'Neill. It's wonderful to see you all here and to finally be in person. As a board member who started just as the pandemic started, we haven't had the opportunity, right, Marna, to really be together. And that's what co-op is about, is relationships. So it's wonderful to see you all here. So as you listen to Jamie dig into the details of the audit report, I'm going to ask you to think about what your experience is like as a member owner and shopper at one of our co-op stores or in one of the service stations. Because before any of us walk into any of those places, the employees are showing up much earlier and they're staying much later. And as Amanda so eloquently said, we're working with local producers and our vendors and in our community to create this wonderful co-op that we happen to have here in the Upper Valley. The financial report is a story, is one of the pieces of the story of the co-op, and we are stable. And it's been a hard year. It's been a hard couple years. So as you're listening to all the facts and figures and the numbers, particularly if you're someone who maybe isn't following all of the nitty-gritty detail of the financials, just think what goes into putting all those numbers together for the independent financial review, the audit that we have done by Baker, Newman, and Noyes. They're not here today, but they've been a strong partner with us. They do an independent audit for us, and they presented at the board meeting this past month. I also want to, we keep saying it, I don't think we can say it enough, is to thank the co-op employees. We've been terribly understaffed, and I often go to the Lebanon Co-op, and people are just lovely. You wouldn't know that it was understaffed. People are just so engaging and lovely and so helpful. And that's a real credit to all of you who work at the co-op, that you embrace us when we come in and shop. And I also want to thank all of us who shop there, because we have other choices. I know for one, I choose to shop at the co-op because of what the co-op is and its values, and how it's working in partnership with our community for the betterment, really, of all of us. And it's a choice that I make, and I want to thank all of you for making that same choice. So, financial reports don't happen all by themselves. Jamie has an amazing team, so I want to give a shout out to the finance team. Tracy Cutter, the controller. Linda Cosgriff, the accounts payable manager. That's an important job. Leanne Marsh, who's a senior accountant. Bob Broderick, account receivable specialist. Thomas White, retail inventory cost accountant. And then Jamie wanted me to be sure to include Lisa Tucker, the human resource manager, and that as well. So thanks to the finance team. And lastly, it is such a joy, Jamie, to introduce you to everyone here and to welcome you to the Upper Valley. Jamie came here from Philadelphia last July. She has amazing credentials, and we're so happy that you chose to come here and work with us. So I'll turn over all the nitty-gritty details to Jamie, and fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a great report.
Hey everybody. I'm super excited to be here. I've been in the co-op world for a while, but this is the first time I've been actually employed by a co-op, which is pretty much a dream for me. So I just want to say that, thank you to everybody, the board, to the employees of the co-op, my, fellow directors who have been really, really just lovely getting me acclimated to a new organization. It's been a wild ride thus far, but I'm really excited for what 2023 is really going to bring. And Doran, just want to say to you, for those of you who don't know, Doran Hall is going to be taking a new role. He's our Lebanon store manager, going to be taking a new role with Honest Weight Food Co-op in Albany. And so Doran, thank you. Obviously we didn't cross paths for all that long, but thank you for what you've done for our co-op, and wishing you luck in your next adventure. So without further ado, I will hop right in. So before I actually get into the presentation,
can you be a little closer to the microphone?
Oh yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay, I don't want to have to stand there. Can you hear me now? All right. So one thing I want to point out, Baker, Newman, and Noyes, our audit team, they are fantastic, and we were issued a clean opinion this year. And so all of the information that we presented are coming from our audited financial statements, which are posted on our website. And then I'll be providing some other more granular detail that are, internal tracking that we do. So if you have any questions throughout this presentation, please, in real time, raise your hand and I can address anything you might have. Well, that's interesting. I know how to work a computer. So, this is a kind of condensed version of our 2022 income statement. Oh, yes.
The mic really needs to be close to your mouth.
Thank you, okay. As you all might tell, I don't talk into a microphone very often. So, income statement for 2022. If you can see, we have a comparative 2022 versus 2021 here. And you'll see that net sales, we got about $1 million increase in net sales. A lot of that growth really is, we all know, inflation is crazy, and that a lot of that growth in sales is really just inflationary. So, pretty steady, I would say, year over year, if you kind of take the context. One thing you will note, which when people call it a tough year, I think what they're really talking about is our costs, our 2/3 of our expenses in this business are purchasing inventory, and those costs increase ridiculously. I mean, so the average inflation for the economy as a whole was between 8 and 9%. You look at food, 15%. So the cost of food. The cost of food really rose up, and especially to be a co-op, while we are a large business, we do not have the buying power of a lot of mega corporate entities who can buy in such bulk that they get really, really low pricing. And so we did see some diminishing effect in our margins. And so ultimately, if you look down here in our loss from operations, you can see that most of that is attributable to our gross profit going down, which is a direct result of the inflation. Any questions on that before I move onward? Eric?
Yeah, just thinking about the margin and the impact of the inflation making it harder to earn money, but is affordability also part of the thinking in terms of the other side of what makes the gross profit?
Yeah, good. That's a good question, Eric. So, yeah, I mean, as the co-op, we have a commitment to not price gouge, right? We have a commitment to deliver, products and food and services to our members and the community as a whole at a reasonable, affordable price. And so you'll see that the margins are diminished because as we're trying to raise our prices, we're working on two legs. We're trying to be strategic. We need to make money. We have a fiduciary duty to keep the business running well. And then the other thing is that we have a duty to our members and to our consumers to provide affordable products. And so there's, as you can imagine, we have a merchandising team, and Kevin is a member of our merchandising team, and Ed Howe's a former member. And so they can tell you how hard it is to walk that line between trying to price in a way that is good for the consumer and also good for the co-op, especially in times of heightened inflation. So, yes. Yes?
Hi, good morning. Lynn Ellen Schmoller. I had a question because I know that you participate in co-op deals, which is really a wonderful way also to keep that pricing competitive. But do you employ price comparison in the area? Like sort of a kind of stealth, just checking out other markets and comparing like basic basket prices on dairy, bread, so forth?
Yeah, that's a great question, and absolutely. So the main competitor that we usually are looking at in regard to pricing is Hannaford. So our merchandisers who set pricing at all locations, they are doing comparisons to Hannaford's. Any other locations, any other stores that we're usually pricing against? That in, Kevin?
I can just offer a quick observational comment. Again, I'm Alan Reeves. I work in the same building as the merchandisers, and my story is a typical one of a typical day within our offices. And very often in the hardest times of the inflationary period, I would go by a conference room that had a very large screen with a very broad spreadsheet on it with 2 to 3 merchandisers in there looking at the prices increases we were suffering from, and they had Hannaford's up to see what their prices were. They had Price Chopper up, they had Amazon up, and they were looking exactly what all the other prices were for these products. And we are talking thousands. They were in this room for hours on end, week after week, to say, what's the least we need to somehow survive. And sometimes it was just like, we can't go any higher. This is gonna pinch us. And to say Herculean, I think, might have been a word that you used earlier, Amanda. It is the quiet work that is remarkable. So that's an observation, but it was day in and day out. And then we know we have teams in the stores who are also looking at the same way of saying, how is this moving? What can we do for the membership and our community?
Thank you, Alan. Yes?
Have we ever considered, or would you consider joining forces with other co-ops in the state to provide larger numbers so we can get a better price?
That's a good thought.
Well, essentially, so if everybody can hear me, so we actually work with a company called National Cooperative Grocers, which is exactly that. It's a co-op of other co-ops, and we band together to negotiate a contract and get better pricing through that buying power. Yes, we work, well, not directly through them, but we work with them to negotiate contracts with our collective buying power. So we have, yes, just that. It has been very helpful and allowed us to get pricing, and why if you go to somewhere like a City Market up in Burlington or Hunger Mountain in Montpelier, you'll see some similar signage and logos sometimes. Those are often items that we're getting through that same deal with that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. That is
Yeah.
helpful. Yes.
Hi, Jamie and Don. It's nice to meet you. Welcome. I'm a co-op traditionalist, and so therefore, when I look at the year-over-year results on the income statement, and I see the financial pressure on the co-op that's driving a red number at the bottom of the income statement, I wonder if the co-op is paying out too much in discounts.
That's a great question. So I think we all know the elephant in the room. Yes, we were paying out way too much in discounts. So when we transitioned from having, was it 1 day or 2 days? 1 day. I was not here. 2 days a month where people could get a 10% discount. The cost to the co-op of people coming in for their 10% discount was about $500,000. Due to the pandemic, we were really driving a lot of traffic. There was a lot of people in the store. I'm sure some of you remember how many people would be in the store on those days. So the pandemic hits, and it's not safe to have that many people within that close proximity of each other, which ultimately led us to do 10% one time throughout the month. So so the discount number. So this isn't gonna give you a good reference point because 2021 and 2022 were pretty similar numbers, but I mean, I just gave you that reference point of $500,000 was the cost before. The 10% was just once a month whenever you wanted to use it. And as you can see, it grew to about $2.3 million. I will say that's not all the 10%. You know, our discount number includes employee discounts, board member discounts, other, you know, food for all, which is 10% to people who receive EBT and WIC benefits. And so obviously that is not a sustainable method. So on March 1st, we transitioned to a loyalty program pretty similar to what a lot of grocery stores, not just co-op, but grocery stores around, and all really stores in all industries are doing, which will allow people, rather than, you know, coming in and earning 10% in one shot, which was really breeding, a lot of people were signing up and doing, you know, $1,000 shops once a month, but then only shopping elsewhere other times in the month. So it wasn't really breeding loyalty to the co-op. So we have our loyalty program now that is expected this year to be around, I think the total cost of it is expected to be around like $1.2 million. So a big decrease. And then if you look at the projections out, it'll continue to cost us less money because we're going to be basically, this year, I mean, it's a decrease, but we had 2 months of the 10% discount, which cost us almost like $400,000. So ultimately, this is gonna allow us, one, pricing, like I talked about, you know, we have people who are analyzing prices and setting them, but before they had to use the 10% discount and factor that in when trying to set pricing. Now they can actually do their job, look at pricing without having to consider this large discount and try to provide more other promotional pricing on, like we talked about, co-op basics, BOGOs, etc. Did that answer your question?
Yes, and now I have a follow-up question.
Yes.
The fifth cooperative principle is education, training, and information. And that is in there because the Rochdale pioneers believed that a cooperative shouldn't try to fool its members, that people who do business with a consumer co-op like this should really understand how the business works and what the realities are. And given that the co-op was paying out too much in discounts, I'm wondering whether it would be consistent with that principle for the co-op to acknowledge that forthrightly to the members and say, look, this doesn't work. And, the way that a co-op is supposed to serve its members is by, if there's a surplus, paying them out a patronage refund at the end of the year. And we can't do that anymore given all these pressures. I think it would behoove the co-op to be more forthright, transparent, and even aggressive about making sure that shoppers understand all these realities that you're talking about here because they're serious.
That's a really good point. And so one thing that I think we had talked about is Dawn, our new director of marketing, really wanting to do an introduction to like new members and basically like a re-education of what the co-op is and what being a co-op member means, including the economic participation part, right? And so that's kind of on the horizon for 2023 marketing, is really trying to, because I mean, to some extent we had a lot of members joining because they wanted, a discount, and those are the people who we got backlash from when we changed this program. And so it's a really good suggestion, and I think it would be something that pairs really naturally with Dawn and her team's efforts to re-educate the community about what being a co-op member really is.
And there is a deeper dive into that information on our website. Like if you go to our co-op rewards, it does do a deeper dive into that information, but we knew that there was going to be a certain amount of unhappiness about taking away that 10% discount. So it was really truly trying to get people introduced to it with the information. Like our service desks have that information where if people want more, they can get it. There are cards where they can go to a website, learn more about it. And yes, it is part of that re-education piece, but it was truly trying to get people to understand the program because it's a different program, like in that you gain higher percentages of points for more local things versus like Price Chopper is just the same thing across the board. So it was really truly trying to get people to understand the program and then understand why is that second piece of how do you easily say to people, like the really technical merchandising piece of it, of how do they try to account for margins? And so yes, we're working on that messaging to say, here's why. But it is out there. It just was truly trying to get people to understand the program as it's at.
Understood on your point of, almost the aggressive transparency of telling people really why the transition needed to happen. And so I will say we're coming up on, I should have been done 15 minutes ago apparently. And so can we save questions for at the end?
I just have a comment which I'd like to make, which is if those customers were so interested to be here today at this meeting, just to make that statement.
We share the same sentiments you do. Well, yes, and so it's a balance. We tread lightly as we can. All right, and so really the only other thing I want to point out going through here is store and wage benefits. You'll see a large decrease. While our average wage per employee actually increased, because we were so low staffed, to Amanda's point, at some points we had like 50% staffing in some of our locations and just really, really low on, budgeted headcount. Obviously, that's what's driving this decrease year over year. General and administrative expenses were up. The main reasons being our POS system. So pretty much ECRS, our POS system, where our people ring you up, where our people maintain, inventory counts and pricing. The fees increased very significantly year over year, which increased general and admin expenses, also recruiting expenses. So for example, myself, and adding new directors to a team, using recruiting firms does cost money, but helps with actually getting a larger candidate pool. And so that was one of the increases in general and admin expenses this year. And then also on our lovely merchandising team, we had Ed, who retired, and Benham, who also retired. And so we had some people who had joined, Kevin, for example, and another member of the team joining with overlap with those people who were retiring to get training available. And so that caused, an increase in, expected general and admin because of that overlap. So that's really the high level of what's going on in regard to kind of the year-over-year fluctuations in our income statement. So if anyone does have questions, please save them and maybe we can chat at the end so I don't hold this room hostage too long. So I'm gonna move on to our next page. So here we have the balance sheet. I like to kind of talk about the balance sheet as a very important perspective of the financial health of our organization because, P&L, income statement, you're looking at a snippet in time, but we've been around for 86 years, so we have a lot of history and resources behind us that can help us weather harder times like 2022. So if you look at this, there's a couple things you'll notice. There is a large decrease in cash and cash equivalents. That is not because we lost money, it's because we invested money. So we decided to put $2.3 million, which we were forgiven our PPP loan from 2020. The Small Business Association decided to forgive our PPP loan, and then we decided to invest those funds in treasury bonds to get some growth on them while they are sitting there. So that's one thing to note. Another thing you'll see, there is a new asset on the books here, $25 million. I'll leave this at, there was a new accounting standard needing to be adopted, and the board will tell you how much the auditors forced them to listen about this accounting standard. I won't go into details because it's quite boring, but essentially we had to put both an asset and a liability on our books that captures the total of future lease payments. And so that asset and liability net out to zero-ish, but they're really not going to tell you, if you're looking, they can really be excluded when looking at like general metrics. Like for example, TD Bank, when we calculate our covenants for them, they said, please exclude those assets and liabilities. They mean nothing. I said, okay, TD Bank, I agree, let's do it. And so that's essentially what you'll see here, and then the corresponding liability here. A couple other things to note. We obviously have our long-term debt. Those are our loans that we have for the purchase of the Hanover building, and then the remodel in the Lebanon building that we did in 2021. And then lastly, for anyone who was able to convert their B shares into B2 shares, the whole point of those B2 shares is that there is a determined date where we will pay people out. And so that is what this mandatory redeemable stock is that sits on this line in liabilities. And then capital stock, those are the A shares. Those are the shares that truly represent membership that each of you own at least 10 shares of to become a member and get your vote. Any questions? Except I just said I was going to save questions. All right, quick question.
I just want to make sure I understand what you said, because
Yes.
the changes in the balance sheet make the co-op look hugely more leveraged than it used to be. And I think what I heard you say when you mentioned TD Bank is that the lenders are saying it doesn't matter.
Yes, so generally accepted accounting principles are not quite common sense. Nobody thinks that this new accounting standard is sensible. However, they pushed it anyway. It's really because investors in large publicly traded companies want to know how much money you owe to your landlords over the next X period. So yes, for our debt covenants and for other important metrics being reported to the bank, we are ignoring and actually though, it doesn't, I hear your point, the increase in liabilities appears over leveraged, but actually it's offset. So it's really netting out. Because if you see here, operating lease liability 26, and then we have, this is related to deferred rent, which was part of the old accounting standard. And so the net of these two is this number. And so they really do net out to zero. So, okay, well, if you want to talk about accounting standards later, we can definitely talk about them. I am a bit of an accounting nerd, so we can do that. All right, no other questions, and I will push forward. All right, sales metrics. So 2 other things that we're really tracking besides total dollars of sales, transaction count, and average basket price, right? So if you see here, this is tracking our transaction count. So transaction counts dropped pretty dramatically. As you can see, there's a drop off in each location in 2020 when the pandemic hit. However, 2020, you can see we also had this peak in basket size, right? So while we might have had less people shopping with us, you know, the co-op does tend to have a high price perception, even when we're not priced significantly higher than our competitors. Price perception means a lot, and people will choose to shop elsewhere. And so while our transaction count went down, our average basket size went up. It was a pandemic, you couldn't eat in restaurants, people were like cooking at home, getting real creative, and so that's why you're seeing those peaks there. Since the pandemic, you can see it's pretty hit or miss, but you know, we haven't regained that transaction count from pre-pandemic. And so any customers that we might have lost have, you know, stayed with whatever, you know, grocery store they started shopping with. And we haven't plummeted back as far as basket size. While it has leveled off, you can see we had our peak in 2020, and it's leveled off a bit in 21 and 22, but it hasn't gone back down to pre-pandemic levels. And so that's really where we're getting our pretty like steady but not significant sales growth from. Any questions? All right. Service centers. So our beloved service centers have had an interesting time over these past couple of years. Gas is always interesting. So obviously, as you can see in 2020, no one was going anywhere. So number of gallons of gas we were sold completely tanked because no one was driving. I shouldn't say no one, that is an absolute term and not actually representative, but a lot less people were driving. If you see though, we all know that gas prices started to hike up in 2021 and 2022. So if you look at our gas sales, I mean, our gas sales look great, but it's really just, again, inflationary. It's like the gas price is rising, our sales look better, but our gallons, they've recovered a bit from the 2020, but not where they used to be. So you got a lot of people working from home, et cetera. So your, you know, traffic patterns have changed, and also with inflation, you know, people are looking for the lowest gas price, which we don't always offer. If you look at non-gas sales, so pretty much repair, parts, labor, so this blue line is Norwich, did not exist till 2019, which is why we see it at 0 in 2018. And so Norwich barely had a chance to get off its feet before the pandemic hit. But as you can see, you know, it started in 2019, it didn't even operate a full year. And then 2020 and on, it's been pretty steady. And this year in 2023 is actually when you'll see Norwich really start to pick up. They had a really hard time staffing, but they currently have a full staff and are pretty much doubling their budget every day with that full staff. And so I think, I'm thinking next year this is gonna look a little bit more like this. And then Park Street was obviously the only service center at one point. And then, you know, when Norwich opened, you really saw people start, you know, Norwich is for those of you who have been to both facilities, Norwich is a larger facility, better waiting space, there's free Wi-Fi, and you can, you know, sit and do work while you wait for your car. And so, you know, people did start to transition over to Norwich, leaving Park Street sales down overall. And it's recovered a bit and kind of evened the playing field. But again, still, you know, we still have that offset of, you know, I guess you could call it cannibalization of Park Street people going to Norwich. In the back, yeah.
I apologize because I was looking late, so you might have covered it earlier. And I want just to go back to the last slide really quickly. When you were talking about transaction count and customer count, how is the co-op maybe accounting for online sales? Have those increased? And curbside pickup, is that something that is robust right now or not?
So
Or was, and then it's sort of...
Maybe, I'm gonna pass this out of, Bruce could probably speak to curbside better. We've, as most of you know, we've closed curbside in Hanover because we had, you know, in Hanover and Lebanon, we had two underperforming curbside departments. Neither were really meeting their full potential, and so we consolidated them into one location. Curbside is significantly down since the pandemic, you know, the height of the pandemic before there was widespread vaccine access, because obviously people, you know, are now more comfortable coming into the stores.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. I promise, guys, I know I'm pushing this really hard. I'm not good at making it brief. All right, and so here's really the last slide, and this just gives you some high-level data. You know, a lot of the data we're looking at is just making sure that we're striking the right labor to sales ratio. And so if you look at our wages as a percentage of total sales, they were 20.1% in 2022. The average percent for other co-ops of, not of our size, I guess, multi-store, so co-ops in the United States that have more than one location, their average was 24.7%, while ours was 20.1%. And that you may ask, why is ours lower? And really it's, economies of scale. We are the second largest co-op in the country, and so whereas a lot of co-ops that have multi-stores might just have 2 stores that are, wrapped up into this metric, we have 4, and then the service centers. And so that's what's really driving us being below the average. As far as, a big ratio that people like to look at, oh, yes.
Sorry, quick question. Is that pretty consistent year over year, or is that maybe because the staffing shortage, that percentage?
It's a little low, yeah, it's a little low in 2022. Yeah. We're expecting to see it recover to some extent, now that we actually have 40 more people employed, which really drives the needle. As far as this ratio, so ratio of highest paid employee at an organization to lowest paid employee is a metric that really people are looking at closely nowadays, kind of seeing what the inequity is in a lot of companies. Your average corporation is 144 to 1. That's not surprising. I think we're all that makes sense in this country we live in. And then if you look at B Corps, so for people who don't have B Corps, benefit corps, they are held to a specific set of standards, and for certified B Corps in the US, the ratio of lowest paid or highest paid to lowest paid employee is 7 to 1 on average. And so I thought that was my cue. And so our ratio in 2022 was 5.8 to 1. So super proud to say that, while anyone you ask will always say, we need better pay, like of course, we would love to give everyone better pay, and that's always why we're trying to make more money, right? Is to give better pay, give better benefits, make the co-op a better place to work so that people are then serving our members and serving the community even better than they already are. But pretty proud of that ratio, if I do say so myself. And then 2022 year-end bonus, like Amanda mentioned, we did one of the largest bonuses that we've done in like the near recent future. So of our $300,000 loss this year, 2/3 of that was very intentional and actually related to the bonus that we paid out in the month of December. And so it was tiered with 2 different metrics. One was longevity, how long you have been with the co-op, and number 2, how many hours you worked that year. Because obviously there were people who had more inflated hours based on if their department was super understaffed, people working a lot of overtime. So we kind of made like a tiered scale and put those 2 together and issued a bonus based on those metrics. Any questions? All right, you're rid of me, I'm done, I promise.
We're supposed to have some time to take questions and comments at the end here on more than just finances. But you can email, call, come into a member service desk. We're going to get to the candidate forum.
Yay, all right. Okay, so this is the other fun part of the agenda, okay? So there's a lot of fun parts, but this is the fun part. Is it not on?
It's on.
Can you hear me okay? Okay, I gotta keep it like this close. Okay, so I know we are, pressed on time, but we're gonna try to be very respectful and give everyone a generous amount of time to speak. This is one of my favorite times of the year, as I mentioned. And by the way, I'm Kenesha Jackson. You can call me CJ. I'm the vice president of the board. So for those who don't know that, but I wanted to say it to you guys. But thank you for all of, everyone who's attended today. I want to give a shout out to April Harkness. She's like so quiet and understated that like people don't know, but she makes a lot of this happen. So we gotta give a shout out to April for that. Also, just really quick, voting did open today, April 1st. So you'll get a chance to hear from the candidates, and then right after, shortly after, you can vote, after you ask questions, and it closes April 30th. So without further ado, I'm going to start with the incumbents. They're gonna lead the way. So let's give it up for Nick Clark, who's our current president. Nick, can you please tell the board, introduce yourself, let them know your background, and then why you want to run for the board again, okay?
Good morning again. I am Nick Clark. I am finishing my first term, so 3 years. The last 2 years I have been president. Before I got on the co-op board, I was on the Thetford Select Board. I was chair during the pandemic, and I can tell you the co-op is much better. I was not sure that I wanted to run for a second term, but I got genuinely excited and inspired by everything that is happening at the co-op, from our ends and our values to the amazing progress that is happening in the stores. And I could not walk away, so that's my...
Hi everyone, Peggy O'Neill. I'm from Cornish and I'm finishing my first term. And as I mentioned, when I started 3 years ago, I thought we would be able to be in community together like this, and much of our board work over the past couple of years has been remote. And so part of the reason why I want to run for a second term is just to continue to build the relationships that I've already started as a co-op member and co-op owner and now a board member. When I'm not a co-op board member, I'm the executive director of WISE. We're the Upper Valley's Domestic and Sexual Violence Advocacy Center. And while our missions might be different, they align for me in terms of the values of believing people, supporting people, and being in community with people. When they're going through tough times, when they've been victimized, and also when they want to just provide for their family and shop in our stores. So there's some alignment with me around the values. The other reason I want to run again is when I first ran and joined the board, it was because I love to cook. And the co-op's just this fun place for me to cook. Coming onto the board, my mind has been completely expanded about the co-op movement and the special place it has in our society and in our community. And I want to be a part of it, and I want to strengthen how I'm a part of it. So I hope you'll consider me as you're thinking about voting for board members, and I would love to serve a second term. Thanks.
Thank you. I just want to thank you too for just all of your work you have done on the board for the term that you were a part of it. So, all right, so we're going to move on to our new candidates. So first up, Katarina. Just introduce yourself, your background, and why you want to join the board.
Hi everybody, my name is Katarina Kate Kearney. A little bit about my background. I was born and raised in Newtown, Connecticut, down south, so I call everybody hon, I call everybody y'all. It's just the way I talk. I want to be on the board because I really want to be able to protect programs such as Food for All and Double Up Bucks, which I think are really important for the community at large. I work at the White River Junction store, so I see a lot of people come in with benefits. I watch a lot of people struggle to pay their bills to be able to afford food, and it's disheartening. And I think that protecting these programs is so important. I also think it's important that the White River Junction store has a voice. I feel like we're a little bit of a forgotten stepchild sometimes, but I know how important my store is to the community. And I feel like if you gave me the chance to represent you guys on the board, I'd be able to bring some new ideas and be able to elevate where I work and the place I love. I hope you consider me.
Thank you, Katarina. All right, so let's see, who else do we have? Eileen, come on up. I feel like the press is ready.
I don't have any letters to turn, unfortunately, so no pressure. Hi, everyone. My name is Eileen O'Toole. I live in Hanover. A little bit about my background. I was born in Massachusetts. I married a Marine at a young age, so we traipsed all over the globe, mostly in the South, and came back to New Hampshire in 2012 when my husband attended Can you hear me okay? Is that better? Sorry. It does have to be very, very close to your mouth. Sorry about that. We stayed after we graduated and started a business here. So we finished raising our kids here and love it. It reminds us a lot of the other areas in New England where we've lived. So I think in my statements, I talked a lot about sort of the growth of the college, and I hear a lot of great words that we always talk about, like community and things like that. And it concerns me when I see things in like the Upper Valley Facebook group where people are like, oh, we really need to name some big box business or a chain.
Trader Joe's.
Trader Joe's, it's like, okay, that's great, but it really, is it too loud?
No,
Sorry.
Trader Joe's.
I didn't see it first. And I want to preserve that community. I think it's important that we think about how the co-op, what the places of the co-op as things grow and change in our community, so we can sort of preserve the special Upper Valley life that we have here. So happy to take questions afterwards.
Thank you, Eileen. Okay, so last but certainly not least. Oh, okay. Manella?
Hi.
Oh, there you go. Okay, come on up. I'm sorry. Okay, so yeah, introduce yourself and background and just why you want to be a part of the board.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Hi, good morning. I'm Lenore Schmoller. I live in Essex, so I took the hour-and-a-half drive to get here this morning. Great drive. Snow's melting, fog, beautiful. I actually grew up in the area. My parents lived in Norwich, or Hanover High School. I enjoyed, I think you saw in my statement, being in the high school. Then it had an open campus. You could walk to the food bin, which is now the gas station, and we'd go over and enjoy the bulk candy and so forth. My mom had a health food store called Honey Gardens in Lebanon, New Hampshire. Now I'm aging myself. How many people know about Honey Gardens? Fantastic. So beautiful, independent, but I really got intoxicated later after attending Bennington College with food co-ops. It's an incredible business model. I have the honor and privilege of having worked at City Market in Burlington as their director of purchasing and merchandising. Did that for 16 years. Got to enjoy the legacy of Tony White. Bruce Valletta's still here when he was in produce. I used to come down and help with the produce team and learned a lot. I left co-op food for Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets, and started to really enjoy board work. Managed a board with them for the Working Men's Enterprise Fund, and now I'm vice president for operations at Vermont Land Trust. So a lot of connective tissue with food access, and now working conservation and looking at land access. So really connecting the dots there. And I'm admittedly a policy governance geek and food geek. So you heard my questions about price comparison and so forth. I care a lot about co-ops. I care a lot about food access and making healthy choices, but not with judgment. So City Market doesn't have a food policy. I remember at Hunger Mountain in Montpelier, and I still kind of get perplexed when I can't find Monument Farms chocolate milk for my son because they don't like vanilla in ingredients. So great to be here. I would be honored to join this board. I think it's been a dream since I've been in high school, secretly, to be on the Henry board. So thanks. We'll get to
All right. So like I was saying, last but not least, Tracy Cutter. Thank you. Hi, I'm Tracy Cutter. I grew up born and raised in New Hampshire. I went to California, San Francisco Bay Area, and went to college there and spent 30 years out there raising my kids. I came back to New Hampshire for its sense of community. Nothing beats a small town and the way you care about people. And I just get really excited. So when I was looking for a job and
hey, what about working for the co-op? And I said, that sounds really cool because it aligns with my core values. I came back to New Hampshire for my parents who are aging. I love the program of the seniors. We give food to the seniors that can't make it to the stores. I have worked in each of the stores during the holidays, and I love the people that come up. I bagged, I had conversation with them, and like Amanda said, it's building relationships. And I'd like to take my corporate knowledge, my finance knowledge, although this is not about money, and give it to the community. I'm at that point in my life where my kids are grown and I want to commit to a community and give what I can give so that everybody can thrive. So I hope you vote for me. Thank you.
All right, we have some good candidates. Please give it up again for our candidates. All right, so again, voting opens today, so you can vote at the table. You can also vote online, so if you go to the website, and then also in the stores as well. So you can cast a vote there, paper vote. Now we're going to open it up for questions, and if you don't want to vote today, that's okay. Just give the time to percolate, marinate in your mind, and you can go online and you can see the candidate statements. But we're going to open it up for questions to the audience. So anyone have any questions for our candidates? Yes.
Thanks. Yeah, I love that the co-op really supports the environment, and I think it's done a lot, but I think there's a lot more that could be done to reduce plastic. And so I was wondering if the candidates would like to speak to that and what you might recommend for plastic reduction.
All right. Does anyone want to tackle that question? Okay, Nick?
I'm at an advantage because I'm on the board. When I first got on the board, the only policy I really cared about related to climate change, and in the first year we added the net zero by 2030 goal. I'm like, great, our work is done. Everything is perfect with the co-op. And of course, there's so much more. There's packaging, there's zero waste, there's paying for it, all the changes that need to happen. We did add a policy already. Policy governance is tricky about encouraging sustainable choices to try and promote reusable bags. Actually, what has been happening at the co-op is April and others have been doing these things faster than the board can write the policies. So I almost think April should answer, but that's my statement.
All right. Does anyone else want to tackle that? Alan?
Sure, I think it's a great question. And I also am reluctant to kind of get involved in sort of the operations of the business too much. And I haven't quite read all of the different, we talked about one of the policy governance items. But it seems to me that encouraging also just bringing your glass, your own bag to refill. So I'm supporting this, right? I think it's really important. And again, I don't want to get into the weeds of operations too much. But I do recall recently, as a customer, buying something in bulk, and so easily and elegantly the cashier weighed my container, figured out the tear, and I was able to purchase something. So I think there's an obvious consciousness already with the staff, which is wonderful. I'm now learning about carbon sequestration, so that's a whole sort of high level piece, but I think there's a lot of opportunity to be thinking about strategically how the co-op does fit in with climate, all the dangers and mitigating the harm that we're causing from a lot of things that we do. So that would be my answer.
Hey. Yes, question back here.
In addition to being a co-op traditionalist, I'm also a fan of edgy questions. And I want to follow up on the question about plastics. So two candidates answered that question about plastics in a similar way, I would say. And the answer was something to the effect of, well, you know, we do policy governance and that's really operations. And so it seems to me that when I hear an answer like that, you're basically saying to the members, even though this is of great interest to the members, because I've heard lots of members of the co-op talk about plastics and the need to phase them out or rely on them less. And so when you ask elected or potentially elected board members, what can you do about that? The answer you're getting back is essentially, well, nothing, because that's operations and we use policy governance. And so my question is there something wrong? I mean, should we ditch the policy governance so that the board actually can address the stuff that the members are telling the board they care about?
Okay.
No, I don't think we should ditch policy governance. I think I'm also coming from a place of having worked in operations for so long and thinking about the great work that one of my former colleagues, Brent Demers, did and still continues to do. And we tried just to separate film plastics. So that's a plastic that's around those pallets of all the food that we eat. And we were trying to separate the film plastic from the other plastic with lots of great effort. It's very important to me. It's incredibly important. I just want to make sure that I'm balancing between what I understand of what the staff can actually do, and what my role would be as a board member to support that.
Does anyone else want to respond? Okay.
Do I need a mic?
Everybody needs a mic. Everybody needs a mic.
Thank you, Alan. I'm Liz Blum. I'm a former board member. And when I was on the board recently, people kept coming to me and talking about plastic and how can we get rid of plastic. So I told them to organize a whole bunch of people to come to a board meeting, because I believe in grassroots organizing. And they came, and Ed Fox, who was the general manager at that time, announced that we would be giving up the plastic bags at checkout, which we did, but we didn't give up other plastic bags. So I would encourage people to take the same kind of action, because that's really how you get things done.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to Katarina first, and then we got to go.
Okay, yes. So one of the ways I personally reduce plastic at White River is when offering somebody to wrap their meat, I actually use the small 20 bags, which are paper bags. And that way, the meat is still separated from their food, but it's a way to reduce plastic. And I try to encourage my coworkers to do that as well. Because once again, we're trying to keep that plastic out of the environment. We're trying to make sure, you know, it's not getting in our waterways or in our food system. So I think it's really important to explore other options like that to really set the tone that we're going to use as little plastic as possible. So.
Sorry, Nick. You know, it's a great question. I don't think it's a great question. And Dawn, I appreciate the being provocative with us, and love to talk more about policy governance and its strengths and challenges. I think it would be wonderful if we had more conversations at the board meeting about how we are both personally and collectively showing up to reduce plastic. One of the things that I do is, because I still do use some plastic, I sort of didn't want to say that, but it's true.
Okay.
is I bring the plastic bags that I do use, I bring them back and use them again for fruits and things like that if I can singly, put my items in the cart. And I wash my plastic bags and reuse them all the time. It's not the answer to reducing plastic, but it's one way of approaching it. The other thing that I think about is balancing wanting to be a place where everyone feels comfortable shopping and being a place that maybe will feel exclusionary because we have certain ways of being when we shop. And I think we have to balance that. I think that plastic bags, I'm glad we don't have them in the stores, but I think the accessibility of the smaller plastic bags for vegetables, as an example, is an ease for some people who are shopping. So, I don't know. I don't have a really articulate point. I know that, and I think I don't know if it was Jamie, but someone mentioned, there's a perception that we are an expensive kind of niche place to shop, and we want more people. We want to be a community co-ops. We want more people to come. So I think sort of balancing that, and I'm hoping that marketing can also include more awareness of the use of plastics and environmental responsibility as they begin to re-educate our community about the co-op.
I will say that policy governance is very good at what it does, which in my mind is preventing the board from micromanaging co-op employees who are experts, professionals. They do it day in, day out. The board is made up of community members. Plastics is incredibly complicated. There's different kinds of plastics. There's the shopping bags, there's plastics from vendors, there's compostable plastics. Composting in the Upper Valley is an issue that ties into that. It's not necessarily available to everyone, especially on the New Hampshire side. Reusable bags is, I know, complicated. If we think of, one idea was like the bottle exchange. If you bring the bottle back, you get your dollar back. Why can't we do that with bags? Because we have to launder them. There might be bacteria from fruits and vegetables in the bags. So it's incredibly complicated. That's why we hire co-op employees to figure this stuff out. It's not going to be quick or easy, and the board as community members isn't going to get it right. And we also have to make sure that we are not hurting our margins, driving customers away, keeping the co-op open. It's so complicated. I think the best the board can do is make sure that Amanda and her team understand that this is important. And if we ask her, I think she'd say yes, and that's a lot. And then there are so many good employees at the co-op that are working on this, and it's just complicated. It'll take time.
Okay, we're gonna take one more comment on this specific topic, because this is a hot button one, but I also encourage maybe some of the candidates to stick around, and if you have any questions. But this is what, we love about the co-op. This has been a topic since, when I ran, right? So that means that this one is not gonna go away until there's a change. Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No,
She had
I'll
you
talk
ready
to
to
someone
go.
later.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, just one additional comment from my experience. Not just being on the board for almost 3 years by now, but also having been an engaged member owner. So I was actually on the environmental committee that Les Baum started, and so the work can happen not only for members to join board meetings, but also within committees. That's where the juicy things happen. So that's an encouragement. The other piece that I wanted to reinforce is that policy governance, if it's not interpreted in a rigid, limiting way, can actually give space for change also from the board perspective. So it's not, once those boundaries between operations and board work are delineated, there's actually, if we're not too rigid in interpretation or too static, there's a lot of room for, making new policies that can support change. And as Nick said, I think the most important place that was very fruitful in making change happen at the co-op has been that alignment with the general manager and member owners providing the voice that empowers the board to be their interpreters, and then that voice gets brought to the general manager, and there's that kind of fluid alignment of values. That's what really energizes the change, and so it's super important to keep that accountability juice flowing, if you will. Okay.
All right, so I want to give everyone a chance to answer questions. So I do have a question, and this is specifically for Eileen and Tracy. Can you talk about just getting to know who you are? As you can see, the member owners are very passionate about the co-op, but and the board does require a significant amount of work. Can you talk about a little bit about managing your time, the board, the responsibilities of the board, and how you plan to do that? And if anyone else wants to chime in, like Kate, if you want to chime in on that. Then Ellen, if you want to chime in, please feel free to do so.
Would you like to go first? Okay. That's a good question. Thank you for asking. So I was on a number of boards for a lot of years when my husband was in the military before he retired. A lot of nonprofit boards, so youth, education, military. It was a great way for me to give back to my community and get involved and use my skills. And I took a pause for a while just to sort of catch my breath a little bit, right? And for me, when I fully commit to something, I fully commit. And so I'm now at a place in my life, I mean, she asked about how we're managing our time. My kids have all grown up and they've left the house, so I'm going to catch my breath a little bit. So the time commitment isn't a concern for me. I work over at Tuck. I'm the director for the Center for Entrepreneurship. And, again, I'll go back to the word community. I really liked a lot of the comments that were made by the other board members. And one of the things I'm hearing is, we work with the store, we work with the community, but people bring different skill sets to the board. And I think the ideas and the recommendations and the support that we can all bring collectively is really, really important. And so that's how I'm viewing my time at the board is, how I operate, about solving problems, building new initiatives, helping students to do that, to kind of not go back to plastic, but I think about some of the problems that we have, and there's new innovations out there that are at least attempting to make things a little bit better. So I'm hoping that skill set that I can bring might be useful for everybody.
My work balance life has completely changed. I am used to working a very corporate job and being chief operations person and finance person. I spent a lot of hours behind the desk or in a lot of meetings. And my 3 children have grown and don't live near the area anymore. They're spreading their wings like I did, and now I'm back. And I love the environment. I'm outside a lot. I do bees, I hike, I kayak. I've been brought up here in New Hampshire, and I love the environment. So for me, it's not I'm giving up my time. I'm passionate about this, and I'm passionate about the community and supporting people of all ages. We have the childcare crisis. I love the fact that we do the Car Connect and help the underprivileged people keep their cars on the road and be able to provide for themselves. I love doing things with the senior community. That's very close to my heart with my aging parents. And I love being in the store. I mean, I've often thought, I'll take a part-time job at the store. But I want to use the skill set that I have, that I've acquired over my years, and help on a higher level. That's not to say I really do enjoy going to the store and bagging and having relationships with people that come to the store again and again. So to me, it's not so much time management, it's my passion.
Thank you. Okay. I think we have time for one more question, but again, candidates, if you can, please stick around. Maybe, people might want to may have questions for you. Does anyone else have a question? Okay, Kevin?
Gonna give me enough time to think about it. Okay, so obviously I'm coming from a place of experience with this. So I was specifically asked a question of the two employee candidates. You know, obviously a good chunk of your daily life is already at the co-op, in a particular section of the business. So in joining the board where you have to really zoom out and look at everything, look not to day to day, look forward, what excites you the most about that different lens that you're hopefully going to be looking at our business? What else about the co-op are you excited to learn about, to kind of put your hands on and kind of help your fellow board members look at?
Hey, it looks like you want to answer that first.
So I've always been a big picture kind of person. I like taking a step back and seeing exactly what's going on and looking at everything in question. I think being on the board would allow me to better educate my fellow employees about why we're making certain decisions, because I am at that store level, and I am on 2 committees. I was on the co-op rewards committee when we put that into effect, and I'm also on the employee engagement committee. And I feel like educating people at the stores is going to be important for educating our customers. And I love the co-op. I love this business. I may have started 7 months ago, but I absolutely love what I'm doing. I love interacting with customers. I love being on both those committees. It was great. And I feel like being able to step back and see the big picture instead of the micro picture that I see right now at White River is going to be really helpful.
I am looking forward to coming to the board and learning more about the co-op business model. It's something I'm not used to. But I also believe I can bring my operations experience, my very minute accounting detailed experience, so I can microscope in and out. And I just am very good at compartmentalizing. So I can work in the resource center and work with the numbers all day, but those aren't our people. And we need to build those relationships, understand what our community needs, and strategize to get them what they need.
Thank you. Okay, so give it up again for Nick. We have as well. So give it up, everyone. Thank you again. You can vote at the back of the table there. That's a computer. You can also find information about the candidates that are listed as well. So thank you. I'm going to pass it over to Nick to close us out.
The meeting is over. Thanks everyone for coming, and enjoy the rainy weather. And I look forward to doing this in person next year. This was way better than Zoom. So thank you.